Just a very few words for myself. First, say good morning to all of you. Well, I'm Borja Izquierdo. I'm the probably I don't know if some of the attendants knows that well, I'm the director of the international unit, or what is called also the European Office Unit at the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology. And just to say a few words, just to open this event, that it's called Towards Horizon Europe, Research, Career Development, and Maria Sklodowska Curie Action. It's a very long title, but it reflects really well what is going to happen today here, what we are going to discuss today, because it's not just a national info day about the program, the MCCA program, the Marislosa Reactions. It's more than that, because we are going to enter also in how researchers' career development could influence in the program, and how the program will influence also in the correct development of researchers' career. I'd like to thank to all of you well, for being connected today. We have had around 700 people registered. That it's really nice, and it shows the great interest that you have for these researchers, Spanish researchers, and some other researchers could have in these promotional activities that we are organizing from the Spanish Foundation for Science and Technology, and in collaboration also with Madrid Mas Foundation, with that reason so Jesus is here. And I'd like to thank also to all the speakers that are now here, that I think all the panelists are already connected. And well, thank you very much for have well for saying with us with a lot of your knowledge, or some of your knowledge and experience, and have some time to share it this with us. And we'd like to also say thank to the Marie Curie Association, Alumni Association, for facilitating the license of Zoom, the tool that we're using today. So it's also something that I would like to thank to you. Thank you very much. And the last but not least is to say thank you very much to the National Contact Point team in Spain for the Marie Curie Actions. Well, for keeping us well, such a good work and spirit in these challenging times that are completely, that are completely different from some months ago. But I think that I can say that you are really doing really well, and I think that all of us should thank you very much for your work, and well, for the work of the participants. A few words about the objectives of this meeting today. It's the objectives. We have two main objectives today. The first one is to speak about the novelties of this program, the Marie Curie Actions, the funding schemes that will probably well, that will be implemented in this new program in Horizon Europe. That you know that it's the evolution and not the revolution from the previous program of Horizon 2020. But it has some novelties, and it's good to start sharing with you what these novelties will be. And the second objectives is also discussed with have a discussion about the researchers' careers and the career development, and especially in the context of the new revamped, we can say, European research area. As you probably know, all of you, there was launched a communication several weeks ago, or 1 month, or 1.5, by the Commission, and it's discussing. It's currently being discussed at the Council, and it's quite interesting to see how this new communication, and how will be the future developments of the European research area will have how these developments will impact in the program, will impact in national systems, and will impact finally in the human resources management, and the mobility and employability of researchers. So I think that it's a really good time, a good opportunity to speak about both issues, because we'll be closely linked, are now closely, really close, but it's a real good time to mix this type of these two objectives, and these two type of of areas. And we will have also some more practical issues dealing with how to create proposals, implement proposals, and to inform you, the researchers and institutions, also about what will be the upcoming events from our national contact points and the support activities that we are going to develop in the future program, in Horizon Europe program. And just very few words about what we are doing in FECIT, support not only the participation in this Horizon Europe program and Horizon 2020, but some other activities that we made to develop our strategic objective that is the promotion of the open and global science and innovation system. And we have 4 areas. The first 2 areas are really linked, are really connected with this event. The first one is deals with the promotion of the mobility and employability of researchers, specifically dealing or in the context of the EURACCESS initiative. The second one deals with the support to the Spanish participants, organizations, and participation of in the European Framework Research Program, in this case, in the future Horizon Europe. Not only in the area of Marie Curie, we are providing also the support some other areas like European Research Council, Future Cluster 2, and some other areas like the Pathfinder in the European Innovation Council, and in the transversal area of I have to remember what's the name exactly name, but it's improving the European research innovation system and spreading the excellence. And this is the second line, and we have 2 more lines that areas or activities that deals with the first one. The third one is dealing with science advice and science diplomacy, and it's especially focused and it's coordinated with the Ministry of Technical Affairs and Cooperation. And the last one is we help our state research agency in the participation in the joint programming initiatives, and we hope that we will do it the same for the future European research partnerships. And I will not take more time because, what is important is now to hear the rest of panelists. And so what I'm going to do is to introduce you the first speaker, that is Mr. Bodo Richter. Thank you very much, Bodo, for your participation. He is the deputy head of unit of, currently he's the deputy head of unit, I don't know if he's going to change, but of the Maria Sklodowska Curie Actions at DG Education, Youth, Sports and Culture from the European Commission. And Bodo has a long experience and he has more than 20 years at the European Commission. And we have no doubt that is the right person, or the person that have contributed the most to making this program as a successful program, a wonderful program. So thank you very much. I hope that you can have a very good event, a very good session. And just one for the people that have been connected now, if you like to make some practical issue, if you like to make some questions, please don't use the chat. Use one of the functionalities of the Zoom system, that is question and answers. And use this because we are going to moderate and try to put the questions to the panelists. So use this instead of the chat. Thank you very much. And Bodo, the virtual floor is yours. So thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Borja, for this nice introduction, the nice words, and you addressed to all of us. Thanks to you and your team, to Cristina, but also to Jesus, who in the back is actually doing the presentation for me, for having organized this info day on the Maria Sklodowska Curie Actions in Horizon Europe. Indeed, we have seen very challenging times, and not only for research, but for each and every citizen out there. This year was difficult in many respects, not only work-wise, also emotionally for lots of people. And I'm very happy actually that now with the vaccine that is being developed and which will be distributed hopefully soon across all of Europe, there's a glimpse of hope that we will move towards better times and to, regain the way we lived before the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So I just wanted to say that also thanks to research, in the end, we will have found a solution out of this pandemic, and this is something. This is a great news, I think, for all of us. Yeah? What I'm going to present to you is the result of work that we've all done together. So not only it's not just the brainchild of the European Commission in Brussels, but we've discussed this at lots of info days across Europe. Prior to the COVID-19 outbreak, already, in person, but then virtually, we discussed the features of the Marie-Sklodowska Curie Actions under Horizon Europe with the national contact points, with our program committee. And what I'm going to present to you is now the outcome of all these discussions. And I'm proud to say that we did this all together. It will serve not only our researchers and institutions, but research in Europe and all across the world. And in the end, it is a small contribution also, I believe, to make this place a better world. So, Jesus, if we can go now to the next slides. Thank you. Just to remind you of the key features of the Marie-Sklodowska Curie Actions, what they have been, and that they will not change in the future. So we will still continue to support the training and career development of researchers, irrespective of their nationality and irrespective of their career stage. So we will start with doctoral candidates and then go on to postdoctoral fellows, but we will also continue to support research and innovation staff. Yeah? It will continue to be based on the III principle, which means first and foremost, of course, there must be international mobility, but we encourage and support very much also intersectoral and interdisciplinary collaboration, in particular with the non-academic sector. Yeah. It will remain a bottom-up program, so there will not be any predefined areas of research kind of priorities. Whatever interests the community will continue to be financed through the MSCA, of course, under the condition that it is excellent. Yeah? We will continue to promote attractive working and employment conditions. As you know, we finance through the MSCA up to 100% of the costs. I say, and I clearly say up to 100%, because not always we can finance the very last cent, but we try to provide institutions and the researchers with a salary, with family allowances, with research training networking costs, and also contribute to the management cost of the project to make things happen and to make them easy. Yeah? And as you know, the program has had and will continue to have an impact not only on researchers' careers, but also on the organizations and the structures. Yeah. Next slide, please. Just in a nutshell, the structure of the MSCA as it was up to now under Horizon 2020. Yeah. So we have these four main actions. You all know them, I assume, by heart. Our innovative training networks for doctoral candidates, individual fellowships for postdoctoral fellows. We have an exchange scheme, research innovation staff exchanges, and of course, we have a co-fund where we finance regional, national, international programs. Yeah. So these are the four main actions. They're complemented also by the European Researchers' Night. And for all of this, up to now, we had 6.2 billion euros available, and we financed, or we will have financed, once the last projects will have been selected and implemented, over 65,000 researchers all across Europe and beyond, which includes also 25,000 doctoral candidates. So how will the MSCA look now under Horizon Europe? Next slide, please. So as you all know, Horizon 2020 was structured in 3 pillars. This structure will continue to apply. It will slightly be reshuffled, but the Marie Sklodowska Curie Actions will remain under Pillar 1, which is excellent sciences, together with the European Research Council and the research infrastructures. Yeah. And what is Pillar 1 supposed to do? You can see it here at the bottom of the slide. It is supposed to reinforce and extend the excellence of the European Union's scientific base. And this is surely what we want to continue to do with the Marie Sklodowska Curie Actions. Next slide, please. So, first of all, let me tell you that we will continue to have 4 main actions, plus, of course, the European Researchers' Night. What we have done to make the actions a little bit more tangible or understandable, let's say, by a wider community, is that we renamed them slightly. So the ITNs, as you have known them so far, will become MSCA doctoral networks. Yeah? The individual fellowships will be renamed and will become postdoctoral fellowships, just to make also sure what the target audience of this action is. We have shortened RISE. RISE will become staff exchanges. Co-fund will stay co-fund. And the night will be part of a little bit wider action, which is called MSCA Citizens and Citizens. But I can also reassure you that the European Researchers' Night will keep its name as it is. Yeah? But we may launch other activities under the action, which is called MSCA and Citizens, yeah? Which are related to public outreach events. So now let's move to doctoral networks. This is the text I've copied and pasted from the current draft work program for the MSCA for the years 2021-2022. You will see also here lots of continuity. So MSCA doctoral networks will concentrate on doctoral candidates. They will be about the attractiveness and excellence of doctoral training in Europe. They are about competences and skills which are not only research related, but also transferable competences. And they will help doctoral candidates to enhance their career perspectives, also beyond the academic sector. And we hope also to train researchers which are with an innovation-oriented mindset. I just saw a question popping by. I think Christina already mentioned this in the very beginning in the chat, that of course the presentation will be available afterwards, yeah, and will be sent out, I think, in the form of a PDF. Huh? So next slide, please. Yes, thank you. We doctoral networks, yeah, will, as I say, will focus on the career development. Will continue to focus on the career development plan. This will be something deliverable of the project at the very beginning. So you will need to develop a career development plan for each and every doctoral candidate recruited under the project. And of course, this needs to be adapted over time to take into account the advancement of the individual researcher. We will stress more the supervision. We are developing actually right now supervision guidelines, and we will make them available to all the community and stakeholders. And we hope that they will form an inspiration for you to apply them within the MSCA projects. Yeah? Of course, it will continue to be about research and transferable skills, notably also in the area of open science, where we will and also responsible research and integrity. I think open science is something that will stay with us, and we need to prepare our researchers for this, in particular the ones that are starting their career. What we have done for the doctoral networks is that we have regrouped them. So we have, in the past, we had 3 sub-actions. You all know them: the European training networks, the industrial doctorates, and the joint doctorates. These ones will be put together in one single action. So in the future, you will not have any more separate ranking lists for each kind of sub-action, but a single ranking list for doctoral programs, for doctoral networks, yeah, that covers all three previous implementation modes, yeah. But we will keep, of course, industrial doctorates, yeah, where we will continue to apply the 50% rule, which means that 50% of the time funded under an MSCA doctoral net industrial doctorate should be spent in the non-academic sector. Yeah? Joint doctorates will also continue, and of course here we also expect joint or multiple doctoral degrees to be conferred to the participating researchers, doctoral candidates. Yeah, the target group, here also we have streamlined a little bit the definition. So we were now talking about doctoral candidates only, and when we talk about doctoral candidates only, this means researchers without a doctoral degree at the date of the recruitment. So this 4-year limitation, you remember we had on the Horizon 2020, those who did not have a doctoral degree but more than 4 years of research experience could not be funded by an ITN. This limitation has been dropped to facilitate and to simplify the rule, but this will also apply to postdoctoral fellowships. I will tell about this more in a second. So who will apply? We continue to ask partnership of universities, research institutions, research infrastructures, but also from businesses, SMEs, musea, hospitals, and other socioeconomic actors to apply. So there nothing has changed. But, and this is one change for the European industrial doctorates, you will need to have at least 3 independent legal entities, each established in a different member state or associated countries. So 2 partner European industrial doctorates will no longer be possible. Yeah? And you need to include at least 1 beneficiary from a member state. Yeah? So doctoral networks that group together only institutions from associated countries will not be possible. Next slide, please. Now, the size. You all remember we had these very low success rates and high oversubscription in innovative doctoral networks under Horizon 2020. So we decided, and here we took up a suggestion from the program committee to actually limit the size of the future MSCA doctoral networks to 360 person months. To make it a little bit more tangible, if you finance 10 doctoral candidates for the maximum of 36 months, this is exactly then the number of doctoral candidates you could finance in a traditional European training network. Yeah? But in order to incentivize the creation of joint or industrial doctorates, these ones can still go up to 540 researcher months or person months as we had them in the past. But then the entire project needs to be either a joint or industrial doctorate. So mixed kind of doctorates are not possible. What concerns the duration, nothing has changed. So the program itself will still be able to last a maximum of 48 months, and the individual fellow can be financed between 3 months and 3 years, 36 months. Yeah? We mainstreamed a little bit the secondment rule across all our actions. So secondments can now last up to 1/3 of the fellowship duration. So if you take 36 months, 1 year out of these 36 months could actually be dedicated to secondments. As I said before, industrial doctorates, here 50% of the time need to be spent in the non-academic sector, but here we eased the rule because now this industrial doctorate can actually happen in the very same country. So the academic and the non-academic host for the fellow can be in the very same country. So could be, for example, an SME in Salamanca and the university in Madrid. Yeah? So this is of course possible. On the slide, you see also the preliminary timetable for the calls. As you all know, the adoption of the Horizon 2020, of the Horizon Europe legal base is a little bit delayed. And also this has repercussions on the adoption of the Horizon Europe work program, which, according to the expectations now, should be adopted in mid-April. So unfortunately, we cannot launch any calls prior to that date. So the calls for the doctoral networks will be launched normally from now on in May, with a deadline in November, as you see it here on the screen. And this should continue like this over the entire period of Horizon Europe. One big change we have introduced, this is also due to the oversubscription of the program, is that we will install resubmission restrictions. And these ones will apply as of the second call of doctoral network, so in 2022. So applications that have received a score in below 80% in the first doctoral networks call of 2021 will be asked not to resubmit in 2022. Yeah. So and we will monitor this, and let's say if this doesn't work, we will need to take more strict measures in this regard. So if you intend to resubmit, you should not resubmit the very same application. So it should actually substantially change in order not to qualify for resubmission. Next slide, please. On this slide, you will now see the revised unit contributions for the Marie Sklodowska-Curie doctoral networks. We have adapted them slightly, so the living allowance has been increased by 4%, and this is also true for postdoctoral fellowships later on. Mobility allowance stays the same. We have increased, however, the family allowance quite substantially, because the study we had launched on our unit cost contribution under Horizon 2020 showed that we should that researchers with family obligations had a higher need than the current, I think it was 500, was it 500 euros? Yes, of family allowance we paid on a monthly basis. So this is why this amount was increased substantially. You will see some, and let me just go to the research training networking cost. You see there a little drop by 200 euros, but this is also a result of the study we had launched, which showed that there was some room for maneuver to reduce slightly the research training networking contribution under the doctoral networks and increase then this contribution for postdoctoral fellowships. Yeah? And the management and indirect costs have not changed. Yeah. However, what I can, and I'm fairly proud to say this, we have managed, and here also I have to acknowledge that my Spanish colleagues in the national contact points, but also in the program committee, were very instrumental in pushing this through. We managed to get a new unit contribution for long-term leave, which is for leaves such as maternity, parental leave, or other special leave. For costs that the employers incur, for additional costs that they incur due to the long-term leave of recruited MSCA fellow. Yeah? And the basis of calculating this allowance will be the living allowance plus the mobility allowance, as you see it here on the screen. And then we will apply a percentage which is calculated based on what the beneficiary had to pay in real terms. So normally, through this allowance, you should be paid back the more or less the very same amount you have to pay in addition for the long-term leave of your fellow. Yeah. And last but not least, you know, for the special needs allowance, currently we have this lump sum system, which is a parallel call for all beneficiaries under Horizon, MSCA beneficiaries under Horizon 2020, where you can apply to get an additional allowance up to 60,000 euros for researchers with a handicap. We have managed now to integrate this also in our unit contribution system. So there will not be anymore a separate grant agreement, but this will be covered by the grant agreement for the doctoral network. We can now move to the next slide. And here we now move to the postdoctoral fellowships. Again, the text from the draft work program. So this is about researchers holding a PhD. I will get back to this in a second. Yeah, it is of course about their individual research, about new skills. Yeah, but also it is about, and here we continue our promotion of the non-academic sector that we started quite heavily under Horizon 2020. So we encourage postdoctoral fellows also to look beyond the academic sector and environment and see if they could actually not envisage working outside of the academic sector. And we will incentivize this through a specific module, which I explain in a second. Next slide, please. So here, again, continuation, supporting postdoctoral researchers and their careers, and we will be open to any nationality. So no restriction whatsoever to the nationality of the researcher. Again, it is about interdisciplinarity, intersectoral, but also in international experience. So we encourage very much this triple I dimension of the MSCA in postdoctoral fellowships. We will also here we have simplified the structure of the current individual fellowships. So there will be one single action only. So we get rid of all the various panels we have under European fellowships. So we'll only keep the scientific panels, but reintegration, career restart, society and enterprise panels, all these panels will disappear in the future. Yeah. We will allow secondments in any country of the world. Yeah, so also there were some limitations in the past, but this has been lifted. Yeah, and what we have done to compensate for the scrapping of the society enterprise panel is that we are mainstreaming now the exposure to the non-academic sector through an additional period of 6 months, which can be asked for at the application stage for a placement in the non-academic sector at the end of the fellowship. Yeah. So each and every fellow supported, postdoctoral fellow supported under this action can ask for 6 additional months in the non-academic sector after the standard duration. Yeah. And this accounts for both European and global fellowships. I see on the slide, I didn't mention this for global fellowships at the bottom, but this also applies for global fellowships. So placement in the non-academic sector in Europe, of course. Yeah. The duration also there, no change. You see, European fellowships can last between 12 and 24 months, and global fellowships between 24 and 36 months. Yeah. There, nothing has changed. So 12 to 24 months in the outgoing phase and 12 months mandatory return phase in Europe, plus if applied for, another 6 months in the non-academic sector. Next slide, please. So, as I said, we want to develop the skills needed for academia and beyond. So this is why we intensify the exposure and the secondments to training in entities beyond academia. And this explains you how we have how we want to do this through these additional 6 months of placement. We will also improve our guidance towards the career development, and both in terms of plan and supervision. But I mentioned this already under the doctoral networks. Yeah. Also here, you know, the figures and the numbers for the postdoctoral, for the current individual fellowships calls have exploded over the years. I mean, under the last call, you all know we received more than 11,500 applications, and this puts a heavy strain on the evaluation procedure and also on the on the quality of the evaluation procedure. As we want to maintain a high quality selection procedure and would also like to improve the success rate, we will also introduce resubmission limitations and make also some small changes to who will be eligible under this action. So first of all, we will limit the research experience. You may have heard about this scientific age. So only those ones who have less than 8 years of postdoctoral experience after having obtained a doctoral degree will be eligible to apply for a postdoctoral fellowship under the Marie Sklodowska Curie Actions. We will, though, have exceptions for career restarters. Yeah, we will have exceptions for research who want to reintegrate into Europe. So, for example, time spent outside of research or outside of research in Europe will not be counted towards this 8 years maximum. As I said already, under doctoral networks, we have abandoned the 4 years rule. Also here, the 4 years rule will have no longer apply. It's a very simple rule. If you have a PhD, you can apply for postdoctoral fellowship. If you don't have a PhD, you cannot. Yeah. So you need to provide a proof of a PhD degree, and then you are eligible for postdoctoral fellowship under the MSCA. And also here, under this action, we will introduce resubmission restriction below the quality threshold. I mean, here the quality threshold will be 70%, and this will apply as of the second call in 2022. Yeah, so there are no resubmission restrictions in the first call in 2021, of course, because this is also something new. And here at the bottom of the slide, you see the schedule for the calls. So they should be launched just after the adoption of the work program in 2021 in April, so mid-April, and the submission deadline should be in mid-September. Next slide, please. And on this slide, you see again the revised unit contribution. I mean, it's more or less the same as I explained to you on the doctoral networks. You see the living allowance was increased by 4%. We changed the family allowance, increased it also here to 660. And then the research training networking costs have also been increased by 200 euros. And the rest has stayed, I think, the same. Yeah, and also here, long-term leave allowance and special needs allowance. Next slide, please. So now let's move to the staff exchanges. Again, as in the past, this will be about international, intersectoral, and interdisciplinary collaboration. It's about sharing knowledge and ideas. It's about creativity. It's about getting researchers to think about becoming entrepreneurs themselves. Yeah, but it is also about supporting, as in the past, research and technical staff, administrative and managerial staff. So in this respect, nothing has changed. And next slide, please. Yeah. So as you know, staff exchanges are the most international action under MSCA. In fact, the MSCA themselves account for more than 50% of all international collaboration under Horizon 2020, and we continue, and we want to continue this also under Horizon Europe. Yeah, as I said, it is open to any type of staff, yeah, which contributes to research activities. So then nothing has changed compared to now. It continues to be about international, intersectoral, interdisciplinary secondments. Yeah, so we pay for the secondment, but as right now on the rise, we do not pay for the salaries. Yeah, but something that will change a little bit compared to now. We'll put more emphasis on the added value of the collaboration itself. So you can actually build your future staff exchange project on the basis of already existing projects, where, for example, you can pay the salary of researchers through a national or an EU program, and we will contribute with the staff exchanges to the exchanges and to enable this collaboration across Europe. Also here, we have not changed yet. We will not change the maximum duration for the project implementation, so it will stay 4 years. And we will allow, and this is a small change compared to Horizon 2020, we will allow interdisciplinary secondments within the same sector within Europe, up to a maximum of 1/3 of the project's person months. Yeah? So you remember, exchanges, for example, with universities were not possible within Europe, but were possible with universities, for example, outside of Europe. This limitation has been dropped, and it is now possible up to 1/3 of all the project person months to engage in interdisciplinary secondments within the same sector. However, because we have also seen that projects have become very, very big and sometimes very difficult to manage, we are going to reduce the number of person months to 360, also for staff exchanges. And at the bottom of this slide, you see the provisional dates for the calls. So staff exchanges, the call should be launched in October with a submission deadline in March. Now let's move quickly to co-fund. Unit contribution also here. Sorry, I forgot about this slide. We have increased the top-up allowance by 200 euros, but we have decreased the research, training, and networking contribution because we allow now also staff exchange projects to be based on already existing other projects. So we imagine that for this, we do not need as much funds as before, but we have increased also slightly the management and indirect costs for staff exchanges to help you manage better these projects. Yeah, and also here you see a special needs allowance will be possible, but of course, as we only finance short-term exchanges through staff exchanges, it makes no sense to have long-term leave allowance under the MSCA staff exchange, because the long-term leave allowance is for additional costs you have to pay, linked to the long-term leave and linked also to the salary of the fellow. So, and as we do not pay salaries under staff exchanges, there's no long-term leave allowance under staff exchanges. So now let's finally move to co-fund. Yeah? So also here, no big change. Co-fund will continue to co-finance new or existing doctoral programs and postdoctoral fellowship schemes. It is about spreading the best practices of the MSCA, taking into account the Charter and Code, as you all know, and enabling intersectoral, interdisciplinary, international mobility of researchers at all stages of their careers. Next slide, please. So I mentioned this already. It is still, co-fund is a very flexible tool. It will be possible to finance doctoral and postdoctoral fellowship programs in any discipline based on international mobility, first and foremost. In the past, you remember we had, it was fairly difficult to explain how the co-financing works with 50%, but then you still needed to add 20% and it became 70% of the minimum living and mobility allowance. So we have changed this now. The European Union's contribution, so the co-fund contribution, will actually cover the entire minimum living and mobility allowance. Yeah. So it is the entire amount you need to pay as a minimum for the salary of the fellows under co-fund. Yeah? It will continue to be accessible for organizations both in the European Union or associated countries. Yeah? So also there, nothing has changed. Yeah? It is about further pushing forward the sustainable structural effects of the Marie Sklodowska creations, not only in the institutions, but also in funding agencies throughout Europe. And as I said, it is about spreading the best practices and promoting high standards in recruitment processes and also in the working conditions. The calls for co-fund should be launched in October, and the submission deadline is scheduled to be in mid-February. Yeah. Next slide, please. I mentioned almost all of what is on this slide. What I wanted to say, it is also we want to have a greater focus on new beneficiaries and new training programs. So you will need to, when you apply, you would also need to stress in your application what are the novelties in your project, especially when you have applied before and you have obtained funding through the MSCA for a co-fund project. We also want to encourage even further the synergies with structural funds. We are in close discussions together with our colleagues from the European Social Fund, but also from the European Regional Development Fund to find easy ways how to combine the synergies with the structural funds. Yeah? As I said, EU contribution, a simplification, it will cover the minimum remuneration, but what do we mean by this? You will get one unit contribution per researcher funded under co-fund. You can use this contribution to pay, for example, for the salary of the fellow, but you could also use this contribution to pay for other costs you have to carry within the co-fund project, as long as you can make sure that you pay at least the minimum remuneration from other sources. Yeah, so it's easier to combine now the co-fund contribution with other sources you may have at national, regional level, or even at institutional level. The limit will continue to be 10 million euros per beneficiary and call. And also here, the maximum duration has not changed. It will be 60 months, so 5 years. Next slide, please. On this slide, you see the unit contribution as it will be as of next year under Horizon Europe. So doctoral programs, we will contribute 2,800 euros per doctoral fellow per month, and for postdoctoral fellows it will be 3,980 euros, and these are exactly the amounts of the minimum remuneration we ask you to pay for our fellows under co-fund. We will also enable, of course, a long-term leave allowance and also a special needs allowance for co-funded fellows. Next slide, please. And of course, MSCA and citizens, that's our action that brings research and researchers closer to the public at large. It's about promoting the role of the researchers for the society and economy, and it's also about raising young people's interest for research and scientific careers. So in a nutshell, it is what the European Researchers' Night already does. So next slide, please. Yeah. So we will continue the European Researchers' Night. We will, though, encourage our beneficiaries to focus a bit more on on priorities of the European Commission and of the European Research and Innovation missions. So, for example, maybe dedicate a European Researchers' Night on cancer, on climate or oceans, on soil, climate neutral cities. I mean, these are the topics of the R&I missions. Yeah. For example, for next year, we already asked applicants to take into account as far as possible, for example, the European Green Deal. Yeah. So I think this is also another way of making European citizens aware of what the European Union does in other areas, and in particular in areas that touch upon European citizens' lives. Yeah? It will continue to promote, of course, also the European Union, and as I said, the impact of its policies in citizens' daily life. Here in 2021, the call will be launched in June with a deadline in October. And the EU contribution will become, and also this is a novelty, will become a lump sum. And if we now go to the next slide, you will see, sorry, I don't have the lump sum here. The lump sum for the MSCA and citizens should be, I mean, we reckon that it could be an amount between 50 and 150,000 euros. You will be asked to submit, of course, a budget, and then experts will look at it and confer a lump sum to the implementation of the project. Yeah. Next slide, please. So last but not least, we will have some support and other activities. Just to mention to you, we are thinking about a transnational, of course, we will continue our transnational cooperation and support of it between the Marie-Sklodowska Curie Action's national contact points. So we will continue financing a project to share good practices, to give training to NCPs, and also to address the research and innovation gap within Europe. Yeah? We will have an action on international cooperation. What do we mean by this? I mean, as I said, the MSCA are the most international component of Horizon 2020. We want to stress a little bit more the strategic promotion of the MSCA at international level. We want to monitor also the progress and the opportunities and challenges that international cooperation have. And when we talk about international cooperation, this means beyond, of course, Europe and associated countries. And we want to develop complementarities with other promotion relays and cooperation initiatives already at hand. And then last but not least, we will continue, of course, also other activities. So we will continue to finance MSCA presidency conferences as in the past. We will continue to engage in events and outreach activities. We will launch studies when it is necessary to see the impact of the MSCA in particular in certain areas and what could be improved, for example, in terms of program implementation. We will also continue to support the very valuable Marie Curie Alumni Association through a specific service contract. And last but not least, we also want to launch a new activity which is called Researchers at Schools that will help our fellows to reach out to their schools or to schools in the countries where they are and promote a career in research and entice also young people to increase their interest in research and career afterwards. Yeah. Okay, next slide, please. Just for you, a couple of links where you can have a look and where you can find more information. Here, one slide. I think then there's another slide at the end with a word of Marie Sklodowska Curie in life, so we can go to the very last slide, yeah, with which I want to finish my presentation. So let's, be courageous. We don't need to be afraid. This year was very difficult for all of us, but there's a glimpse of hope, as I said at the very beginning, and I'm sure we will all overcome this and go back to normal life and also to the implementation of the Marie Sklodowska Curie Actions, the program that actually next year should celebrate its 25th anniversary. So thank you to all of you, and sorry for being quite lengthy, but I thought this might be quite useful for you to see what we intend to do for each and every action as of next year. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Bodo, for this exhaustive, and it was quite informative and quite clear presentation. We do have a good few questions that was expected, and I've answered some of them. But also, it's true that we are running a little bit late. I think we can take some time, around 5-10 minutes, to answer some of them. So just to start maybe with a general question that has appeared a couple of times, what's going to happen with UK in the next Horizon Europe program?
I think this is a very good question, and you need to ask this to our heads of states and governments who are meeting right now in Brussels, and also to the British Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, whom we all follow these discussions. I think it is, these discussions happen at a very, very high political level. Yeah. And of course, if the UK, if there will be an agreement with the UK on the future relationship, of course, I'm pretty much sure they will be associated and they will continue to participate in the program as they participate in the past. But if they're not associated, they will automatically become a third country, and they have to be treated as a third country. But I really would say this is not in our hands at all, and there are very difficult discussions going on, and I think everybody is interested in associating the UK to research and innovation, but the big stumbling blocks are not research and innovation at the moment. I think are fisheries and other kind of issues which need to be sorted out. So unfortunately, I cannot give you an answer to this question, a clear answer to this question, because I have no influence on what will happen.
Indeed. So just going maybe a little bit into a couple of actions. maybe doctoral networks first. So we have a few questions, and the first one that is included there is, will ITNs with joint doctorates evaluated with higher grade or just encouraged with the extra person month? The same question will be regarding industrial doctorates, if you can further elaborate.
Yes, they will all be evaluated to the very same evaluation criteria. Yeah, there's no preferential treatment for industrial doctorates or for joint doctorates. Yeah, the only, let's say, incentive they get are more researcher months. But as in the past, I mean, they will be evaluated in their scientific panel. But now, instead of taking them away and putting them into a different basket, they will all stay within the same scientific panel. And they will stay at the ranking list where they have been evaluated. So there will not be any preferential treatment for them.
Perfect. Then concerning resubmissions for the doctoral networks, how will it be set? Will it be based on the entities participating or rather on the proposal content? And how will this restriction work?
Okay. I mean, resubmission, we have discussed in the past with the national contact points and also with the program committee that, for example, we could say if 70% of the network of the consortium and 70% of the content in terms of wording, is the same, we would, and then the mark is below 80%, we would say this is a resubmission. Yeah, and then if, let's say, a new proposal would be submitted and we would detect that 70% of the content and of the consortium is the same, we would discard it. Yeah, but of course, putting this into the work program, then you will see that lots of applications will be submitted with 65% of this and that. Yeah, and we don't want to play this game. So we will send out a letter at the end of the 2021 Doctoral Networks call, indicating that you have received a mark below 80%. We encourage you not to submit again, to review your project, either change it completely or wait for a year. Yeah, of course, in 2022, if this still happens and consortia circumvents the rule, we may have, as I said at the beginning, have then stricter rules in 2023 and really go through kind of artificial intelligence and check all of these proposals. Yeah, but I think we count in the beginning of the understanding and goodwill of the people, because if you have a proposal that is less than 80%, you will never ever stand the chance, to get funded normally in the next year. Yeah, because that means you need to revise completely your proposal. So the same proposal will not fly.
Yes, and the idea will really need to be reshaped. Okay, so we will move now to be able to get a couple of questions on the postdoctoral fellowship. And the first one will be obviously regarding this new scientific aid restrictions. So one of the questions is, for postdoctoral fellowship, the research experience of 8 years refers to experience within Europe or all around the world. So maybe if you can re-elaborate on what these exceptions are and how will it work? Okay,
so if you apply, the exceptions, the research experience, the scientific age counts for your experience as a researcher, irrespective if you're inside or outside of Europe. However, when you come, so if you are in Europe and you apply for a postdoctoral fellowship, it is 8 years. But for example, if you have been outside of research for whatever reason, this time will not count it towards this research experience. Now, as the program is also about encouraging researchers from outside of Europe to come back to Europe, the time they spend outside of Europe prior to coming back to Europe through the MSCA, would not be counted. However, for example, if you have been in Europe already for 4 years, and you spend, let's say, 4 years prior to that in the US, this exception will no longer count, yeah? Because this is, you're not directly coming back to Europe. And for, let's say, maternity leave, for example, we will count for each and every child that is born within these kind of 8 years of research experience. We will deduct from the experience 1.5 years automatically. If you have been out of research for longer periods during to maternity or parental leave, of course, we'll take into account the longer time. Yeah?
Perfect. And actually, concerning maternity and paternity leave, there's a question also in the case of a fellow that takes a maternity and paternity leave. Will he or she, her or his contract also be extended by the number of months of the actual leave?
Yes, for postdoctoral fellows, I mean, this is fairly easy because it is their personal project, let's say it this way. So if during the fellowship they take paternity or maternal leave, yes, the project will be, project duration will be extended. Huh?
Perfect.
For fellows under doctoral networks, it is more complicated, yeah, because there you have the entire project duration, which is limited to 4 years. So there we need to see if this can fit within the project duration. Otherwise, unfortunately, as it is the case right now, our beneficiaries need to take other action.
Okay. And there are also some concern regarding enterprises and companies participated. So one of the questions is, would enterprises still be eligible for applying to the rest of the panels, or are they not eligible anymore?
No, all our actions stay open to applicants from whatever kind of sector. So companies, musea, NGOs, ministries, whatever. They can also apply, let's say, under doctoral fellowships. I think this concerns in particular the doctoral fellowships because we have these additional 6 months for placement. No, they can apply, but of course, they will need to compete with all the others in the same basket. So there will no longer be, let's say, kind of secured panel as the society enterprise panel was in the past, yeah, for non-academic sector applicants. But of course, they can continue to apply.
Perfect. And one last question for the postdoctoral. We have others, but I will try to answer them afterwards in the chat. What is most taken into account by the Commission when selecting an applicant? The curriculum itself, in terms of the number of publications as first author in high impact journal, or the research projects?
This is a good question, but it's actually a balance. And we have always to see what, I mean, it is, let's say, if we take now the postdoctoral fellowships as they are proposed for Horizon Europe, you can have fellows who have just finished their PhD and fellows who have already almost an experience of 8 years as a postdoctoral fellow. Yeah? So of course, it would not be fair to compare the publication list of the postdoctoral fellow with almost 8 years to the publication list of the one who has just obtained his or her PhD. Yeah. So we actually look at each and every fellow in terms of this kind of publications. We also look at the excellence, of course, of the project itself. Yeah. And you will see also later in the work program, and once it is published, we have various criteria in terms of excellence. And one point is the excellence of the research project itself, of the subject. And the other one is the excellence of the fellow, but always at the stage, at the career stage where she or he is. Yeah. If not, we would do kind of, I mean, comparing apples with pears. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then we will move to co-fund and MSCA and citizens, just to give them some time. So will any management costs for MSCA co-fund be covered by the CE? Thank you very much.
Well, I mean, what the co-fund contribution is irrespective of what you use it for. Yeah. So when you use it for management, or if you use it for the training and networking costs, or you use part of it to pay the salary, it doesn't matter as long as you can prove that you paid the minimum salary. Yeah. Yes. So, and this makes then, I mean, this makes, I think from our point of view, this makes a lot of sense, because now you can much more freely combine resources than you could under Horizon 2020. Yeah. So yes, but of course, you cannot tell us that the management of a co-fund project eats up the entire co-fund contribution. Yeah, I think this would be a very, very expensive project to manage. Yeah, so we will also look, of course, at what's the word? The feasibility, or I can't remember the word. The realisticness. I don't know what the word is. Yeah, of your budget. Yeah, if it makes sense or not.
Perfect. And then we have a question: if you could further develop the activity researchers at school.
Okay. So researchers at schools, that will be a contract managed by the European Commission with a service provider who will help our fellows to go either back to their schools or go to schools in the country where they do their fellowship, to speak about their research, to bring research results into schools, to help teachers also in explaining what all, for example, in chemistry or in physics, but also in social sciences, what all of this is about. And it will be an extra bonus. It will not be, researchers will not have to pay for this from their own research money or research training and from their own project. This will be paid through the European Commission. Yeah, and we will issue, the exact implementation modalities have not yet been discussed, but the idea is to issue kind of call for interests. Researchers in countries across Europe, MSCA fellows can apply. They say, I would like to go to this and that school, and then we will finance this trip. Yeah, so they don't have to finance this from their own pocket.
That's a very good initiative for the next FEMO program. And then the last two questions, because I don't want to take more time from the next session, because this one, I think we're mixing here the mobility and the scientific age. So regarding the exception on the academic age, what about the case of researchers at risk who have come to Europe? Is their period of being researchers in their home countries included in the 8 years?
For the time being, yes. Yeah, we need to look at this. Maybe we can still fine-tune a little bit our definition for the exceptions as well. I know they are under a particular, they're in a very particular situation. We should try to do whatever we can, I think, also to help these researchers to reintegrate into research. But of course, the devil is in the detail, and which period do you then not count? Which period do you count? But we are discussing this within the Commission, and we will still, we are still reflecting on this, and I'm sure we will come up with some slight modifications of this rule. Yeah.
Okay, and then we will take a final one concerning the Green Charter. Any practical recommendations regarding the MSCA Green Charter in terms of evaluation of proposal and increasing success changes?
The Green Charter is something that will be expected from all, not expected. We encourage all our proposals or our beneficiaries to apply the Green Charter. Yeah. For the time being, we have not put any particular award criteria relating to the Green Charter in our in the list of award criteria. Of course, some of the wider Commission priorities should also be reflected as far as possible in an application. So if you can reflect on it, this is good, but it will not lead at the very beginning to additional points or whatsoever. Yeah, but we expect all our projects to implement as far as possible some of the recommendations from the Green Charter. And we are going to publish this Green Charter fairly soon, at the beginning of 2021, so people can actually have a look at it, can see what is it all about. It is not only about your own behavior, but it's about also how institutions deal with greening research, and also about how to organize, for example, conferences, and do we really need to participate in each and every international conference physically, or are there other means of participating in these things? Yeah. but more about this in the very near future.
Thank you very much, Bodo. I think we've taken some time from the next panel, so there's still a few questions, but Jesus and I will answer them during the rest of the session. So, Bodo, thank you for inspiring so many researchers to pursue their careers thanks to this fantastic program. And I know it's possibly the last time we'll see you as a deputy head of unit. So thank you very much for inspiring us as NCB to do our job, and best of luck for you in the future. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. Thanks all of you. And yeah, I'm sure one way or the other, we will meet again. Yeah. Let me just finish by sharing with you the slogan of my life, and I think it's I think I took it from a film or from, I can't remember from who said it, John Lennon probably. In the end, everything will be fine. And if it's not fine, it's not yet the end. So everything will be fine. Thank you.
Thank you, Bodo. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.